So if you haven't already, you're going to want to watch or listen to episode 144, the episode that I recorded last week. That episode goes through my own personal story of miscarriage that happened in the last few months. If you're listening to this when it's new, obviously. And it lays the background for what I'm going to talk about today, which is some changes in my practice and what I'm going to offer moms who might be walking a similar very hard road to give them some relief, both emotionally and financially. So, again, go watch that one first, then hop right back in here, and we're going to get into some pretty detailed stuff. I'm going to share with you like billing and numbers and compassion, so many different things that I encountered as a midwife going through the system, having a miscarriage, and I think you're going to learn a lot. So let's go. Are you a Christian woman yearning for a beautiful, joyful pregnancy and birth with a focus on God, not medical tests? Are you worried the birth you want isn't possible and you're tired of being treated like an accident waiting to happen? Hey Mama, I'm Lori, host of Your Birth God's Way. I'm a certified nurse midwife now, but I wasn't always. After working for nearly 20 years in the broken maternity system, I too was in your shoes wondering how I could have the birth I wanted and that I felt God meant for me to have. I found a secret that has actually been known since the beginning of time. God's way is the best way. Spoiler alert, God made us and our babies, and He knows us best. He designed us perfectly for pregnancy, birth, and nourishing our babies after birth, if we work with His design and not against it. In this podcast, you'll learn how to be healthy and have joy during this time of life that will be over before you know it. So if you're ready to reclaim your birth and your babies for His glory, go turn on a few episodes of Bluey for that little one on your hip so you can put the focus back on you for a few minutes with me. Okay, again, this week I'm not going to do a review. Again, it doesn't feel right. It's just not one of those episodes. And again, this week I don't have my nice little laid out outline because I don't know, it doesn't seem right. I just want to talk about it. I have my sticky notes and that's what I'm going to go by. Because I want you to understand, and I'm sorry I'm saying so much. That happens a lot more when I don't have an outline, but I just want you to understand what I went through as a midwife in the system. When you go through the system, it's hard enough as it is as a civilian, non-medical, normal person. Okay. I'm an abnormal person who has lots of experience in this world. I've worked in an ER. I've worked labor and delivery. I've worked OB/ER, meaning obstetrical ER. That's when you go into the hospital to bigger hospitals for obstetrical issues. I've worked as a midwife in labor and delivery. I've worked at midwife home birth. I've worked midwife birth center. I've worked so many aspects of the system. So when I go into it, I know what to expect. And even knowing what to expect, it always throws a curveball. And so I want to kind of walk you through four, they kind of all blend together. Four problems, big problems that I had in the system. Sorry for the squeaky chair. Okay, so I think I had written down the bills as being the biggest problem. I'm actually going to put that at the end. I want to talk about the financial side of this. You all know that I talk about Samaritan Ministries and all that kind of stuff a lot, and I want to tell you about how that all works out. But then I also want to explain to you just what it feels like to get these bills and how big they are and things like that. Now, I have some serious problems with the way that my visit went. And there are things that probably most people wouldn't have even noticed. Again, it's because of my background and my experience and things like that. I'm not going to name the specific hospital. If you know me and you know where I live, it's not going to be hard for you to figure out. But I'm actually pursuing it a little bit. I want to talk to this hospital because this is not what people should have to go through. And I'm hoping that through this, maybe some change will come because there are some things that are ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, usually mostly on the billing side. So I'll talk to you about that in a second. So first I want to talk about the ultrasound experience. So if you go into a medical facility having any issues like bleeding or anything like that in pregnancy, you're going to get an ultrasound. I knew that. That was mainly the reason I was going, honestly, because as much as I don't like first trimester ultrasounds, you know that's no secret. I also know that it's the only way to make for sure whether or not you have an ectopic pregnancy or not. And that was what I was worried about that day. I didn't say this last episode, but I never really figured out what caused all my symptoms. By the way, when I got there, I should have put this all in last episode. My blood pressure was like 140 something over 90. It's never high. So my blood pressure was crazy. My heart was racing. At one point, I counted it in the 120s. There was lots of weird symptoms going on. Never were explained. I don't know if it was an anxiety attack or something like that. I'd never had one of those before, but something was clearly going on, but it wasn't an ectopic, thank God. But the only way to rule that out 100% is to look with an ultrasound. So I knew that. And so we go do the ultrasound. And if you'll remember, I mentioned when she was doing the ultrasound, she wouldn't tell me anything. She's not allowed to diagnose anything, and I understood that. She wouldn't let me look at the screen. I didn't understand that. I think that was heartless because it turned out to be the only time that I got to see my baby. Now, I told you that I got to see it when it came out, but you know, if I had not caught that, if I had not just happened to check at the right time and do the things, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back and listen to last episode. You might, in fact, you've got to, because none of this is going to make sense to you. I'm going to make references to things you're not going to know what I'm talking about if you don't go listen to the last episode. But if I had not known or checked and done the things that I did, I wouldn't have ever seen my baby at all. And she wouldn't let me look at the screen. As a woman, she was a woman, I just feel like there should have been some compassion there. I was, sitting here on her table in a dark room for ultrasound at my darkest hour. This is not fun. This is not good. This is not something that I want to be there for. And yet she didn't have compassion for that. She was very kind for other things like when I was doing the transvaginal ultrasound, she let me put it in, which was good because it made it a little bit more comfortable, things like that. I'm not going to go into all those details. If you've had one before, you know what I'm talking about. But so that was good. And she did transabdominal first to try to keep from doing the transvaginal, which I now know, as you'll learn in a minute, is, pretty standard. But then she wouldn't let me look. And then she, I guess, was thinking out loud and said, "What makes you think that you were having an ectopic?" She didn't say it like that. I messed up the flow. But in other words, I mean, that tone was, "It's not an ectopic. Why did you think that?" She didn't say that, but I read between the lines, again, understanding how this whole process works. And so from that point on, I'm worrying as a person who doesn't trust first trimester ultrasound. I'm worrying, oh no, here I am getting a first trimester ultrasound and the baby's okay. And so I say to her, if the baby's okay and you can see that, you know what you're looking at. If you can see that and you know the baby's okay, please cut this short because I don't trust first trimester ultrasound. Fast forward, they didn't provide me the ultrasound report, but I requested it. You can do that, by the way. They're your records. I requested it and I got it. And I also saw, let me rewind a little bit, when the ER doctor came into my room to tell me what she had found, which I'll talk about a little bit more about in a minute, I asked him if I could see the pictures because, again, for one thing, I'm a cash pay patient. I know I'm about to have to pay out the rear end for this visit. I want to see the pictures that she wouldn't let me see. So he actually took me to the charting station, nurses station, whatever they called it there, and let me look. And he let me take pictures of his screen. And I'm so thankful for that because that gave me the opportunity to see some things a little clearer. But in doing so, I saw the note that she wrote on there that said she doesn't, or put in quotes, "I don't trust first trimester ultrasounds." So her takeaway out of all that I said was not if you see something going on or if you see the baby's okay, don't keep up doing this. Let's cut it short, but just cut it short. I don't trust first trimester ultrasounds, as if I wasn't being reasonable. And that grinds my gears. I don't appreciate that at all because it did not tell the whole story. It was a quote. It's kind of like the news cycle now. You can quote anything. You can make it sound like somebody said anything, but you got to give the full context. And she didn't. And I don't appreciate that at all. But that was basically to cover her rear end for why she probably didn't do the full scan. Whatever. That's fine. I get how it works, but it's just another part of the problem with the system. So we've got the heartlessness of not being able to see the screen. And then the note on the sheet. But one of the when I was taking the pictures on when you start to learn about ultrasound, again, I'll tell you more about that in a minute. There's some different readings and things on there, and I could see certain measurements. And so I went and did some research and everything, and I have since learned that the baby's measurements in no way they met the literal definition of miscarriage. There was no question. And you combine the measurement issues with the HCG that didn't double, as I talked about last episode, there was no question. I should not have walked out of that ER without a diagnosis of miscarriage. Instead, I had threatened miscarriage, which means it looks like it might be going that direction, but we really don't know. So, for the grand total of however much this all adds up to, I got a diagnosis of essentially nothing, and they knew. And I don't understand why they wouldn't just say it. I don't know if they were afraid of saying it and being wrong, but there's no way to not have a heartbeat at that point. There's no way to have a crown rump length as short as it was at that point and it be viable. Maybe they were doubting my dates, but I knew the exact dates. I was very sure of my dates. Now I went home and questioned them. I thought, well, maybe I have ovulated late? Could it be this? Could it be that? But in order for me to have the dates that it would have had to have been for the baby to be okay, I would have had to ovulate after I'd had a positive pregnancy test, which is obviously not possible. So, they just wouldn't call it what it was. And as a midwife, I figured it out. But as if you were a normal, non-medical person, you wouldn't have known. And I don't think that is right. Okay, so this is all going somewhere, by the way. I know I've already hashed this out a little bit on the last episode, but this is going somewhere. So the ultrasound itself, we're going to start blending in a little bit to the bill situation. The ultrasound itself from the hospital bill was $2,374.54. So that experience of not being able to look at the pictures, having why did you think this was ectopic? And then having the comment of my quote put on the report, all that added up to a nice hefty total of over $2,000. Now, had I not gone to the ER, had I gone to the local radiology place where you can get ultrasounds, which I considered doing, but because I wasn't sure I wasn't having an ectopic, I didn't think that was the right place to go. I wanted to go to the place where if I was having an ectopic, I could get help. I didn't want to be at the radiology place potentially in an emergency, dangerous situation where they're not equipped to take care of that. Had I gone there, it would have been around $300-ish, maybe $400. But I got it for the bargain price of $2,374.54. Now, you don't ever see those if you have insurance because that just goes off and it gets billed and then they pay some small percentage of it and that's it. But this is what they bill. Now, caveat, as a cash pay patient, you get a pretty significant discount off of that. But the significant discount is still more than that. In fact, I didn't do the math. I'm going to get my calculator out here. I'm going to do some math on the fly. All right, so $2,374 will leave change out. And then I believe they did like a 87% discount, which is good, right? But 87%, by the way, that tells you what a racket insurance is because they're not losing money on me. You hear me? They are not losing money on me. So that bill of $2,374 is approximately 87% higher than what they believe they're going to get paid for ever. Okay, but it's a racket. They have to mark it up so that then they can maybe get paid a little bit. All right, so we're going to do that times 0.13 because 0.13, 13% is what's left after you take off 87%. So that's how much you're actually paying. So that ultrasound is now $308. Okay, so maybe you're along the lines of what it would have been at the other place, but on this piece of paper, unbelievably, $2,374. Now, that's not all. When you get an ultrasound at a hospital, the ultrasound tech does the test. The doctor looks at it, but they're not radiologists, so they can't diagnose, which is the most absurd thing I've ever heard. I mean, like if you've taken courses, it's not hard. But they don't interpret. So you've got your ER bill, ER doctor bill, the bill for the ultrasound itself. Then you get a phantom radiology bill. And this is from somebody who, it's funny when they sent me the bill, thank you for the opportunity to participate in your care, as if I had a choice. So this radiologist who probably looked at my ultrasound for approximately 30 seconds charged me $435 to review it and not even give a diagnosis. Like I never even got any results from them. I never heard anything from them. They just look at it after the fact. $435. Now that their practice gave me a 50% discount as a cash pay patient. So $217. But $217 for 30 seconds, that's not too bad. Work that out for your hourly rate of pay. So ultrasound, ER bill, ER doctor bill, radiology bill. All for an experience that had no compassion, was heartless, and a little misleading as far as what she said that I said. Okay. Now, let's look at the other side of this bill. So we passed the ultrasound issue, and I'm going to go into where this is going with my practice in a minute. Stay tuned. All right. On this bill, they did some labs. Says they drew a magnesium. Don't even know why, other than maybe for the heart situation. I really actually have to question this. But what's interesting is as I was getting ready for this podcast, I didn't even notice this before. They've double billed me for this magnesium lab. They only drew my blood one time. So it's impossible for them to have done it twice. But that magnesium lab, $375.87. Okay. The HCG, okay, that was the lab that I drew at home, and then they did it there, and it had been 48 hours later. That test, $555.96. Okay, here's why I'm telling you this. As a midwife, I draw these labs on my clients, right? As a midwife, if I get these billed to myself, to my clinic, as a cash pay clinic, where I then pay the bill for you, the HCG lab is $4. Did you hear me? $4. They charged me $555. Now, if I take the discount off of that, just to be fair, that leaves it at $72.15. But I can get the exact same lab for $4. Okay? The progesterone, and progesterone was interesting because the progesterone they said was a sent out lab. So it was at least 3 days before I even knew this result. And I had to go get it. They wouldn't even tell me over the phone. They would never call me to tell me. I had to go to the hospital and ask them what it was because I just wanted to know. That lab was $389.97. That lab, if I had done it myself and sent it myself, I would have gotten my results faster myself as a private provider than I got as an ER patient. Emergency, right? And yet I had to wait longer to get my lab from them for the bargain price of $389 than I would have been able to get for $4.65 if I'd done it myself. Are you hearing this? $4.65. So let's see, 389 times 0.13, $50 for that one after the discount. Then there's the other magnesium on there because it's there twice. Then this is the worst one. Complete metabolic panel. That's looking at sodium, potassium, all these different chemicals in your blood in the balance of them. Okay. CMP. They didn't even draw a CBC. Oh, they did draw CBC. Sorry, I'll get to that in a second. It was under a different category. So the CMP, $947.50. I can draw it for you for $3.75. Are y'all seeing what an absolute racket this is? $375 versus $947, or with the discount, $123. Now, if you don't know to ask for that discount, by the way, they would be happy for you to pay that full amount. If you don't know to ask for the cash pay discount, you would be paying $947. If you don't pursue it and they turn you over to collections, you're getting collected on for $947 for a lab that cost me $3 to run or $4 to run. It's infuriating. Then the CBC, same old story. I can run it for you for $3.82. They charge me $491. So $491 times 13% is $63-ish. So all of that to say, these labs, which added up to over $3,000, partially because the magnesium was double billed and I've got to deal with that because they double billed me for something. Yay, I still got to deal with this. Um, for I could have done now the magnesium one for full disclosure, I actually don't have it on my price list, so I couldn't figure out what I would have to pay for that lab. But for the labs that were run on me minus the magnesium, I can run them for $16.22, and I was charged over 3,000. You starting to see what I'm dealing with here with this system, how broken it is, how broken it is. And y'all, I live in a poor town. There's not a lot of rich people here. These are people who are living, on very little. And I'm sure there's a good percentage of them that don't have insurance. And if they walk in there and they get this bill, that's what they're getting. It's infuriating. On top of all of this, the ER visit, just the ER charge, not for the doctor, is $1,662. The ultrasound charge again was $2,374. And then the ER doctor bill, who they bill totally separate, was $1,220. So $1,220. They gave, I want to say, a 20% discount. I can't remember. I didn't have it here. But here's the kicker. Remember we mentioned in the CBC, I mean, not the CBC, the EKG they did on me when I told them my heart rate was racing when I first got there? The charge for that was built into this, but I got charged like $82 to have that interpreted by the doctor. And I'm trying to see. Oh, I think it's on the back. The EKG on the back here, $710 plus an 80 some odd dollar interpretation charge. Y'all, this machine, I did these all the time when I worked in the ER. You put a few stickers on, you hook up some probes, and you let the thing run and you push print. That's all you do. It was normal sinus rhythm, which is the normal heart rate that most people who don't have heart issues or have anything going on that they have. The tech who put it on or the nurse who put it on interpreted it right then. And yet it was $800 or $790 for the EKG and the doctor fee, billing for the EKG that, by the way, he had nothing to do with. He never touched it. I don't even know if he looked at it. I guess he glanced at it because he has to, but that's what I got charged for the EKG that I did not need. I was not presenting for any cardiac issues. I was presenting for a rule out ectopic, and that's how it went. So, what has this led to in my practice? Well, as we're sitting in the ER, my husband's sitting in the corner, says after the ultrasound's over, and he looks at me and he says, "Is this something you can do?" And I was like, "Yeah, in fact," and this is what's ironic, I'd actually already looked at this because I have some friends who offer ultrasound to their clients as part of their things that they offer. Usually midwives use it for just kind of verifying head down placement or something like that at birth. I don't really know a whole lot of them around here who do much more with it than that, but it is something that midwives are able to be certified in doing. And I'd already looked into it a little bit, but I thought, I can't really justify that until this happened. And my husband said, "Is this something that you can do?" And I said, "Actually, yes." And I decided to look into it, and I found out that there was a course coming up in Nashville, obviously not very far from me. And so I enrolled. I took the entire course in a week. I went through all of the stuff in a week, crammed it in, learned it all, went to the training, and now I'm waiting to hear back from them to be able to sit for the test. They had submitted my certificates that I had done it all, and now I'm waiting to hear back to sit for the test. And that may seem a little odd to you because you know that I don't like ultrasound, and that really hasn't changed. I don't like it. I don't trust it inherently. However, if you find yourself in the shoes that I was in and you need to know, are you okay? Is your pregnancy where it's supposed to be, or is it in a tube somewhere? That's a hard time. And when you walk into an ER that deals with everything, there's not a lot of compassion that lives there. And if you are the type of person who is wanting to have a home birth, or the type of person who wants to avoid the system altogether, the idea of walking into the system is awful. And especially for somebody that doesn't know how to navigate it like I do, and even with me knowing how to navigate it, I still let them do an EKG that wasn't needed and cost $800. Even I, in the nerves of it all, didn't think to say, why are you doing this? Don't do this. This isn't needed. So I know that if you don't have the medical training, it's hard to navigate this. You don't know if by declining something, you're putting yourself in danger. I know all that. It's not fair to you. You shouldn't have to figure all this out. And so it hit me that people like me, who I would have planned a home birth, who people like me who really, really don't like the system, they need a place to go. They need somebody who understands them. They need somebody who can do this skill and help them in their time of need without a, let's say 2.5, three, I don't know, was that $7,000, $8,000 of medical bills now? Now, granted, some of them had discounts that I called and negotiated, but you shouldn't have to do that. Getting a call and negotiate a bill for the time you had to go to the doctor or to the hospital for a baby that died, it's awful. And so I decided I wanted to be able to offer this service to women who need this type of care in their darkest hour. And so I am working on being certified to be a midwife who can do this now. And I know that seems to some on surface hypocritical. But see, I never really said you should never, ever, ever get an ultrasound. And I don't believe it that you should never, ever, ever get an ultrasound. I just think it should be weighed. I think it should be the benefits should outweigh the risk. As anything, I want you to weigh the benefits and the risk and decide if is the risk worth it. In this case, when you were afraid that you might have a pregnancy in your fallopian tube that could rupture and cause you to bleed out and potentially die, obviously the risk of some radiation from an ultrasound is worth it because we want to make sure you're okay. And so I am now going to be certified to do that. I will also be able to do pretty much everything short of an anatomy scan. So that means I can, if you're, let's say you're wanting a home birth, you're at 41 and a half weeks, you are being cared for by a midwife who maybe isn't able to take care of you past 42 weeks. You're trying to make sure everything's okay because you're wanting to be reasonable. You know everything's okay really in your gut, but maybe the recommendation has been for you to get what's called a biophysical profile or an amniotic fluid index or things like this. And so you want to be reasonable. You want to get these tests done, but you don't want to walk into the system. I'll be able to do those types of things now. Everything essentially except for anatomy scans, and that's just because it's a more detailed exam that you really they recommend having radiological interpretation of it. And so I've gone to the training, I've done the class, I'm continuing to train. I've got a big old textbook sitting over here. So now I actually have the knowledge. And what's interesting, I've looked back at my readings again and gone through it all again. And it is clear that I had already had a miscarriage when I walked in and they sent me home with hope. And they shouldn't have. They should have told me the truth. They should have had the courage to tell me the truth. But now I will be able to sit with women who are going through this awful time in a way that understands what they're going through because I've been there now with a skill that they need so that they can have the information without an $8,000 bill at the end of the day. I can also run the labs that need to be run for very reasonable prices, right? 16 some odd dollars. And actually all these aren't even needed. But even if I did run all of these, $16 versus 3,000, I'd say that's probably a pretty good deal. Maybe a little bit more to cover my supplies, but not much. It's just, it's needed. And I did not know of anybody in my area that was doing it. And I know most of you who are listening are nowhere near me, but you might be as far away as Florida, North Carolina, Indiana. You might be out there a little ways. And it might be worth the drive to not have to walk into the system. Just take a little vacation to Tennessee and have somebody care for you who has been in your shoes and who can help you without robbing you blind. So with time, once the certification has gone through, I will be adding some element of this to my website where you can find it if you were to need that service. You can, of course, email me. This is not going to be the bulk of my practice. In fact, initially I thought, well, I'll just offer this to the midwives around me when their clients need it. But I think that you all are here to support me. You've been here all along. And I know mamas go through this all the time in silence by themselves. And then most of them get scared and go to the ER like I did. And then they walk home with these bills. And it's not right. And so I hope I've said everything that I meant to say because, like I said, I didn't do very good notes. But I hope you can understand the heart of what I'm telling you, why I am offering something that I fundamentally actually don't believe in. That sounds wrong. I do believe in it. It's a good technology. It's just I'm not so sure it's a safe technology. That's the problem. It's very interesting. I've learned a lot about how it works. I've learned a lot about how to measure and interpret and different things like that. It's actually very interesting. It's just that I'm not sure it's completely safe. But I think in small doses for things like this, I think it actually is a good option to give you the knowledge of whether your body is okay or it's not. And I'm excited to be able to offer that to you. I'm working on acquiring a machine for myself now. There's all kinds of options out there now that are portable and easy to use. I'll even be able to offer this as like a home visit type of a situation for people who are, relatively close to me. So it's a lot of information. It's a lot of change. But I hope that God will allow me to serve some of you in your darkest hours. And not that I want you to have darkest hours, obviously, but they're going to come. And now those of you who are at least a little bit close to me have an option of someone you can see who can help you in a way that doesn't rob you blind and also understands you. If you walk into a hospital system and you let it be known that you're planning a home birth, a lot of them just treat you awful, or they just kind of look at you funny, like you're crazy and you're putting your baby in danger and blah, blah, blah. You won't have to deal with that with me. I get it. Obviously, I am it. So again, I hope I'm not forgetting anything. I feel like I am. I really, really feel like I am. But I guess if I am, I'll add it in a future episode. Let me know what you think. You can leave the comment below if you're watching on YouTube, comment in our Facebook group, all the things. Yep, that's it. So thank you for listening, and I will see you next week.
Real quick, if today's episode blessed you in any way, would you head over to Apple Podcasts and leave me a quick 5-star written review? It'll take you less than a minute, but it's the best thank you can give me. And it will help my show to reach more mamas just like you so we can all find God's best for our families. I'll see you right back here in a few days.